Welcome back to Words of the Wise. Today I have Chief McDonald from Tigard PD in Oregon, 24 years experience in law enforcement. Really looking forward to having him on today's show. So welcome, Chief McDonald. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thanks, Paige. It's an honor. Thanks for having me.
Of course, I was hoping that maybe we can start with a little bit of background on you.
Oh, okay. Well, you said 24 years in law enforcement. I've done my entire career here at Tigard. And the cool thing is when I became the chief, and I didn't know this until the day I got sworn in as chief, that I'm the first chief to come all the way through the ranks at Tigard. We're the first completely homegrown police chief in our organization's history. One of the old timers that retired before I even started showed up at my swearing in, and I'm like, what are you doing here? And he's like, are you kidding? We would never miss this. You're the first chief to come all the way through the ranks.
I love that.
So that's how I found out is because one of the old timers that had retired, they were really he was really proud of it. He'd been out of law enforcement for over 20 years and he felt so proud of that moment that he showed up. So it kind of cool. Yeah.
Love that. You're making history.
I guess so. Yeah.
That's so cool. I know, when you and I talked offline, wellness is something that is really important to you and your organization. And you had said something to me that kind of stuck with me. And I was hoping you could dive into this a little bit more. But you said that wellness needs to be who you are as an organization. What did you mean by that?
Yeah, it's one thing to build a culture of wellness, but it's another to just have it be part of, I guess, like your core values as an organization. And that's really what we're trying to build here so that people are living well. It's not just wellness, not just a buzzword, but they're living their lives well. And part of that has to do with their ability to be able to come to work well adjusted and ready to do their job and serve their community. And that's what we're trying to do is make sure that they're taking a piece of themselves for everywhere that they go, but that they're most present when they're with their loved ones, with their family and friends, so that when they come to work, they're well adjusted and ready to go. And you can't do that if you're not living well. And so that's where we really are trying to have it be more than just a culture, but be part of who we are as an organization, really like to our core.
It's woven into the fabric of who you are. I love that
Yes.
about that. I'm curious to hear your opinion on this because I've heard different opinions about this, but you said so it's not just a buzzword. Do you think that wellness has become that in certain ways, that it's become kind of a buzzword or a check the box type of thing, and rather than being a part of, like you said, the fabric, the core values?
I do. I think that some places can just lean on it. Oh yeah, we have a wellness program or we have a wellness policy or something like that. But you have to you have to have that buy-in throughout the organization. And when you're talking about wellness, it can't stop at a policy. It can't stop at a well, we encourage our people to go work out. It needs to be different than that. And so, for example, our wellness program, um, we call it, we give people the opportunity to have wellness time on duty. We don't call it workout time, right? It's wellness time because, for me, going out and working out and getting sweaty, that resonates with me. But that isn't what resonates with everyone. And so giving people the opportunity to do something that is meaningful to them,
Yeah.
that allows for them to have what makes them well, that's what we do. And that's part of weaving it into the fabric of the organization is not doing a cookie cutter program that is, it's a one size fits all because that is not the case, right?
Yeah. How do you identify the needs of the organization so that you can make it so that it feels like it's built for your team and it's not kind of that, check the box, one size fits all? Do you have any strategies that you can share that have been successful with, building that culture and getting that buy-in and providing things that are important to the specific individuals within your organization?
Sure. It's interesting that you say that because what we have is so, for example, we started with health coach, right? One of the very first things we did when we decided, hey, we're going to kick off this wellness program, we started with a health coach. And She was awesome. Well, she still is awesome. But what we found is that after a period of time, we weren't getting the engagement that we wanted because we couldn't hit everybody at the times we wanted. The
Yeah.
programs that we were doing were excellent, but the return on investment wasn't what we were looking for. We wanted more engagement. We wanted people to be involved in the program more. So we kind of started to pivot off of the health coach thing, and we were able to identify some things like a sorry, somebody was coming back from one of their walks, probably doing his wellness time right now, and he just waved at me. Um, so what we did is we really tried to focus on, okay, how can we expand this, get more people engaged? And what we really landed on was that wellness time piece,
Mhm.
right? By allowing people to do something that resonates with them. If you want to go get sweaty, go get sweaty. If you want to go for a walk, go for a walk. If you want to sit and read a book under the tree out in the back, go sit and read a book for an hour under the tree in the back. If that's what resonates with you and helps you be well, that's what we want to do. If somebody has a therapy appointment scheduled, we allow them to use wellness time to go to their therapy appointment.
Mm.
So things like that. So they don't have to schedule that outside of work. They can do it during work hours. And then that's part of their wellness time. So if that's what they use their wellness time for that day to go have their therapy appointment, that's perfect. That's exactly what we're looking for because it's what resonates with the individual. And so we've had to pivot and develop over time because if we just threw something out there and let it lay down, we would be missing a good section of the department. And we want everyone, and this doesn't matter whether you're a sworn police officer or you're part of the professional staff, right?
Right.
Everybody in the department gets the opportunity to do this because we recognize that this job is not just hard for the police officers, it's hard for the support staff that is here that's hearing about some of these events that officers experience. And so they have some of that secondary trauma. And we want to make sure that we're giving them the same resources that we're giving to the police officers that are out there on the front lines experiencing it. So it's had to evolve over time to get us to a point where, and it will continue to evolve, right?
Mhm.
We were just literally talking about some stuff earlier this week about how can we actually navigate through something. We've some of our officers are playing pickleball out back. We don't have a spot set up, so they're chalking the ground every time they want to play pickleball. And so they said, "Hey, we want to paint lines. All right, let's figure out where we can paint lines to put pickleball, and it's going to be in the parking lot, right? Because we don't have a space to do it." But we want to try and set that up because now we've got people that are wanting to play pickleball. So constantly evolving, trying to do things that get people excited to be, engaged in wellness. And it's kind of fun to watch pickleball. I actually need to start playing with them because it'd be kind of fun to do it.
I really appreciate the out of the box thinking and recognizing that wellness is not just fitness. And I agree with you that you're going to have so many different people within the organization that have different interests. And if you can give them the space and the opportunity to do things that resonate with them, I think the question is always, what is the end goal? Is the end goal where they have longevity, they're less stressed, like you said, they're more engaged, they have the opportunity to like decompress so that they can show up as better versions of themselves for the organization, but also for their families once they leave and go home for the day. So if you can give that space and opportunity and have that open-mindedness to allow that to evolve and grow, I really appreciate that approach. I think that's so cool. And I think to your point, there's always the thing, well, we don't have the space. And for you to be like, well, we're painting lines in the parking lot, it kind of just allows other people maybe who are listening to think outside the box a little bit more and say, okay, well, how can we make it work?
Yeah, and that's driven by our members too. This wasn't an idea that I came up with or somebody from the command staff came up with. And one of the things that I always challenge everyone, all the decision makers, right, is it's easy to say no. I challenge them to say yes.
Mm,
And maybe we have to put some guardrails on it, right? But
sure.
I challenge them to say yes because it's simple to say no. And so I think we can develop good systems and allow people to do things when we put more thought to it. And it really makes sense. I mean, the whole idea of people being well adjusted, I want them to be well adjusted and present when they're home, when they're in their personal lives, when they're with their family. That's what matters the most to me, because if they are, when they come to work, they aren't going to have those distractions. They're going to be focused on being able to do their work right because their family life is squared away.
Yeah.
And then when they show up at work, they're way more likely to be present. They're less likely to get complaints. They're going to be a lot more attentive to the work that needs to be done. And they can just be the best version of themselves all the way around. So trying to help create that balance and help people do that is a huge piece of it. And just that being open to developing new things is a part of that too, because people aren't going to always do the same thing. Their wellness journey will evolve too. What is working today for them may not be the same thing that's working 6 months from now.
Right.
And so giving people the flexibility to kind of switch on their own and say, you know what, I've been trying this, but I don't really like this anymore. I'm gonna switch over to this and give whatever this is a shot. And if we just box them in something small by saying, well, no, you can go out and get on the treadmill or the bike or lift weights, then we aren't going to have near the engagement we want. I'm shooting for 100% engagement. I mean, we may never get there, but that's my goal, right?
Yeah.
Maybe unrealistic, but I want people to have some level of engagement in the wellness program. I want 100% engagement, and that's a lofty goal. But I bet you that we're probably close to 75%. We're going to do a survey here a little bit later in the year, and one of those things I'm going to ask is how often do you engage in the wellness time, and then we can get a barometer as to where we're at, and that should be informative. Uh-oh. If I don't move I stand at my desk all the time, and sometimes the lights go out on me.
It's so good. No, I appreciate that a lot. And I think you should always strive to have the most engagement as possible, right? And especially if you have that flexibility. And I also think that if you give people permission that like, hey, just because you're doing this now doesn't mean you have to do this forever. Like we're giving you options. Like if you want to go to your therapy appointment, if you want to, maybe you're playing pickleball for a little bit and then you get old like me and you can't move as well and maybe you decide that you want to do more like mobility or I really really appreciate that approach. I think that's really cool. Is there anything that you have seen that's like really unique that someone has done that you were like surprised by that maybe you didn't even think would be wellness but it was to them?
Knitting.
Okay.
Knitting is one that I've seen. So I've seen one of our folks knitting. Um, so yoga is one, and the thing that's tough is we don't have a great space for yoga. We have the mats that we use for defensive tactics, and it's in
Sure.
the same space as our workout area. So it's not a quiet place.
Yeah.
Uh, we have some folks that do meditation.
Yeah.
I try and stretch when if I'm short on time, I just try and go take some time and do some stretching if I'm not going to be able to get a full amount of wellness time. Because let's face it, I'm not near as flexible as I used to be, and stretching prevents injuries. And
Yeah.
so let's see, I don't know if there's anything. Knitting is probably the
Like the
most
knitting.
innovative one. That one's
Yeah.
probably the most innovative. Yeah.
I like that. You talked about ROI earlier, and for anyone who maybe doesn't know what that acronym is, it's return on investment, right? Like you want to make sure that the things that you're implementing are having a positive return. And it doesn't always have to be financial, right? It's like that could be this return of performance, less sick time,
Yep.
maybe just like I don't want to say like the vibe, but maybe people are happier when they're, at work. Have you seen a direct impact of having this wellness time and all the things that you're implementing organizationally? Have you seen a direct impact on performance or attitude or anything like that that is an indication of that ROI?
I think one of the things that I notice actually is the amount of work. And a lot of people thought, oh, well, we're gonna, people are so everybody gets an hour of time each day that they work for wellness time. And what the first thought was, well, our production level is going to go down. And I think what we're seeing, and we don't have, it's really kind of hard to calculate hard data, but what we're actually seeing is we're seeing production go up.
Mm.
So the best way I can calculate that is in self-initiated activity for the officers, right? We see month over month, year over year, a consistent increase in um, in self-initiated activity, right? So it's continuing to increase each month. And so what that tells me is that officers are engaged, they're out being more proactive and doing things that are, keeping them busier, and they're using less time to do it,
Mhm.
right? Because our calls for service are staying actually pretty flat. So for this year over last year, they're pretty flat. I mean, they're within about 1% to for year to date, but our self-initiated activity is up 18%. So our the wellness time that we are using now started within the last year, right? And so we're seeing that ROI, right? The
Yeah.
community is seeing it because the officers are being more proactive. They're doing more of that. And we don't have any more officers on the street today than we did a year ago.
Yeah.
We're trying to continue hiring and filling some of the vacancies that we have, but our patrol staff doesn't have any more officers working today than they did a year ago. So, in fact, it's probably one or two less at the current moment. So we're very, very close to the same staffing, but yet we're seeing increases in that work. And that tells me that officers have the ability to be more engaged in the work that they're doing.
Yeah.
And it's still too early to really do a calculation on sick time,
Sure.
but everybody that I've talked to that's done anything similar has seen a reduction in sick time, especially from those that are engaged in, and most of them have like a fitness program or something, and they'll or workout time that they use is what typically it is. Wellness time, just in general, is kind of unusual, and some of my peers look at me like, "You allow people to do what?" But we really feel like here that it's really the right thing to do, and allowing people to engage in a way that speaks to them is the feedback that I'm getting internally is that people really love that.
Yeah.
And
Great.
the the biggest pushback that we get is when supervisors have to cancel wellness time due to operational needs, right? It's super
Okay.
busy or we have a big call. People get really frustrated because they're like, wait a minute, what? You mean I don't get my wellness time? No, we've got to go take calls. It's super busy right now, or we have a big call and swing shift's coming in. Our swing shift is decided as a shift. They like to do their wellness time at the beginning of the shift. And they're a really cohesive group. They like to do it together. And so they're doing it together. Our day shift does it at the very end of their shift, and they're the pickleball shift, right?
Mhm.
They all like to go out and play pickleball a couple days a week now. And so if we have to cancel wellness time, if the supervisor has to cancel wellness time because it's just too busy, which doesn't happen very often, they get frustrated. And so that tells me that there's a lot of buy-in, there's a lot of investment in the program because people are like, I've been looking forward to this all day.
Yeah.
And now it gets canceled. And so that that tells me that people are excited about it and they want to be involved in it. So um, that's probably I think the biggest hurdle we have right now is trying to, get to a point where we can ensure that people have their time every day,
What a cool shift.
right?
That's great. It's like they don't feel like this is something they have to do. It's
Not at
something
all.
that they get to do and they want to do. And I think that that in itself is an ROI. Like that in itself is like, wow, like you're seeing your people like bummed out that they don't get to do their wellness time
Yep.
and they're excited when they get to do it. Like what a cool shift. Could you imagine when you started, 24 years ago? Imagine it wasn't that way. And so that's, speaks volumes to, like you said, how you're trying to make wellness a part of who you guys are as an organization. And it's something that everyone is looking forward to. I There was one thing I wrote down that you said in our previous conversation that I thought was really powerful, and I was hoping you could expand on it a little bit. You said, we train them not to die on the streets, and wellness trains them not to die by suicide. Can
Yeah.
you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah. I mean, if you look at the statistics, police officer suicide is like three times greater at least than the officers that die in the line of duty, right? So I I question why is it that we spend so much time training for violent acts against police officers, yet we don't do any training for suicide prevention,
Hmm.
right? It's one of those things that as an industry we only recently have started talking about is how do we prevent suicide? And I would argue that there are much easier ways to do suicide prevention than the amount of or and takes less time, right? Than the amount of focus that we give on training officers to, protect themselves from violent acts. Because one of the things that we've done, society does it in general, but stigmatizing reaching out for help, for therapy or a psychologist and getting that professional help, we have to, as an industry, change the way we think about it. We have to encourage that. It can't be seen as a sign of weakness. It can't be a stigma if you have a therapist. You you maybe have a couple of them because they specialize in different things and you've had some different challenges. And so we have to transform how people think about that. And it starts at the grassroots level. You have to lead by example with that. You have to make it be okay. You have to encourage it. And some of the things that we're trying to do in that regard our insurance carrier has access for first responders specifically. So they have therapists and psychiatrists, psychologists that they have contracted with that are specific to first responders. So police and fire are the two main. And it's a piece of cake to get an appointment. And it's really, really powerful when you can go and talk to somebody that actually knows what you're experiencing as a police officer.
Hmm.
And we have a couple of psychologists in the metro area here that were former police officers. So they know firsthand some of the things that you're experiencing if you're talking to them about some of the things that are bothering you, right? And it's normal because it gives you some tools to help deal with some of that baggage that we all carry around, right? And so that's a critical piece is getting that prevention in there, making sure that people know where to go for help. You alluded to it where you said it probably wasn't like that when you started this career. It was absolutely not. In fact, it was forbidden. If you said anything about, "Hey, I'm kind of struggling with that call I went to last night," you just wouldn't say that. If
Hmm.
you say that now, in fact, there's a good chance now that if a supervisor sees that you've gone on a really tough call, um, let's say like a child death, the ones that are always challenging, and maybe you've got a young one at home, we'll give that person critical incident leave and send them home for the rest of the shift.
Yeah.
Go home and hug your kids and we're going to check on you tomorrow and make sure that you're okay. And that allows people to decompress. And that's just not something that happened uh, in this organization early in my career for sure. And I think there's still a lot of room for growth in the industry to recognize that those are the types of things that lead to, PTSD later on. And if we can prevent that, we can also prevent things like substance abuse disorders, and you can potentially prevent serious depression, and then at the very end, prevent somebody from either attempting or taking their own life. And it's our responsibility, especially mine as a leader, to try and come up with as many things as possible to give the tools to our officers to make sure that they can, one, reach out for help, and two, hopefully never get to the point where they need to reach out for help. They've got those tools in place. So if they start feeling like that, they know where to turn.
Yeah.
Um, we need to train them just like we train them for the job that they hit out on the street every day. So,
Yeah, and you said this without saying it. There's always going to be a reactive approach, right? There's always going to be that. Like
yep.
post-critical incident, there has to be reactionary resources. But how can we also, like you said, get in front of it, just like you do in training? How can we have you almost like current with your
Mm-hmm.
wellness, beforehand and front load some of that so that it makes the back end of that easier, because you are prepared. You have like um, that mindset and you have those resources that are going to, maybe you can't prepare for everything, but it's going
Right.
to make some of those things a little bit easier. And my hope is that, and I've had this conversation before, and my hope is that one day we can view physical and mental as being the same.
Yeah.
As far as like stigma, right? Like if you were to go up to someone and say, hey, like injury prevention is important. And also, if you get injured, injury recovery is really important. We want to make sure that we give you the tools to reduce the risk, but in the event that there is an injury after the fact, we're going to get you the help that you need. Maybe we send you to PT or whatever it is that you
Yeah.
need to do. It's the same with mental. How can we say, hey, we want to be preventative. We want to give you as many tools as we possibly can to, reduce your risk of stress and anxiety and burnout and trauma and all the things. But in the event that you are experiencing a crisis and there is something that you're going through, how can we also get you the help that you need in maybe the form of talk therapy or, whatever it is, and not be a stigma. Like no one's going to argue the injury prevention and recovery standpoint, but there's still this like pushback on the mental side. So my hope is that those two will be viewed in a similar, if not the same fashion in the future. And I think we're getting there. I think that we're moving in the right direction. I also think the way you prevent it or present it is important. And you mentioned this earlier, but like just put tactical in front of anything. Maybe
Yeah.
instead of saying have a therapist, maybe you say like, what about like tactical talking? Like, are you on board with tactical talking? Or like just like frame it in a
Yeah.
way that like helps to like remove the barriers a little bit and get people on board.
Yeah, one of the things that we've done here, so we have a peer support team,
Mhm.
right? And the peer support team, they'll reach out to people for a variety of different reasons. But one of the things that if you're on peer support, we tell you, hey, you need to go sit down and have at least a session with a therapist because you need to be able to talk about that when you're talking with our folks.
Yeah.
And one of the things that we're starting to see because they've all gone and seen a therapist. I'm on the peer support or was like kind of not really anymore. Nobody wants to come talk to the chief about this stuff.
Yeah.
But when I was on it, yeah, I went and talked to a therapist as well. And it is super helpful, right? And then when I'm talking to somebody else who may not be presenting that they're struggling with something in their life, and you end up talking about therapy or you end up talking about, hey, it isn't really that big of a deal, it might click something with them where all of a sudden they go, huh, yeah, maybe I should make a call. And they may never tell you that, but it might be just enough to trigger something like, okay, well, they've done it. And I really look at, I mean, the peer support team, I don't want to say it's a popularity contest, but we ask people in the organization, who do you feel comfortable talking about some of your toughest things that are going on in your life?
Mhm.
And so people throw out names of who they feel they could, feel comfortable talking to, who they would trust. And so then that's how people end up getting onto our peer support team. Then we'll go and ask them, hey, would you be interested in doing this? Your peers are interested in you being a part of it. And when people know what is expected of the peer support team, they then also start going, huh, okay, I could totally get on board with that. And if we can just make it okay, and not only just make it okay, but encourage it, um, man, we could move mountains, and we could prevent a lot of that stress injury that you talked about. We could prevent it so that we don't have to do the PT or the MT on the back end, right?
Right.
Um, it's that it's just a way we can do it. It's that preventative piece that we as an industry just need to get better at.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'm always on board with proactive and preventative, and it's always the hardest. It takes more effort to front load things, but I completely agree with you. I wanted to ask you, because you have so many things that you're doing organizationally to encourage and support and provide wellness. How do you keep people engaged in their wellness outside of the organization? Because there's so much that you can do when they're there, but how do you get them to prioritize that for themselves when they're not at work?
Yeah, one of the things and this was told to me a long time ago when I was early in the career, but it's something that we really encourage is maintain your friendships and your relationships outside of work.
Mhm.
People that are not cops, people you don't see at work every single day who are experiencing the exact same things that you are. Have those friends that you do something else with, a fishing buddy that is not in law enforcement. I play soccer, competitive soccer, and it's great. I mean, the guys on my team are from all walks of life, and so you end up having activities that aren't just with the people that you work with, and it helps you to remain a well-adjusted human being,
Mhm.
right? So you're
Yeah.
not seeing the world through the eyes of a cop, which I mean, we see people on their worst days. So you can get a pretty jaded view of society if that's all you're doing. So we really encourage people to maintain and build friendships outside of the job so that they can have, I guess, that diversity of experience in their life,
Mhm.
because it really does help make us, more well-rounded as people too. And what we do see is that when people are involved in those types of things, that they have fewer challenges at work too.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things we really encourage here is trying to keep those those activities outside of work. Maybe a faith-based organization or volunteer opportunities. Doing something for a nonprofit, things that something that speaks to you as a person, but that doesn't rely on something from work,
Yeah.
right? It just makes us better people.
I like that you said that a couple times and really connecting with like the human part of it outside of the career because you are somebody
People.
outside of the career, right? Like you have
Yeah.
interests and you're not just Chief McDonald, right? Like you are a whole nother person with different interests. And I think it's important to recognize that, but I think it's also important to cultivate that in your life. And it gives you a different sense of joy and fulfillment and different perspectives and mindsets. And I also think that it keeps you in check a little bit too because I think that your environment, I've been in this before where you are who you surround yourself with, right? And so I've been in circles before where I didn't realize that I was being really negative or that I was maybe being really unhealthy with my choices because my circle perpetuated that. My circle encouraged that. And so, if you're out partying all the time, but all of your friends also party, then you don't know that maybe that's not healthy. And so, the same thing with like negative talk. If you're always talking negatively and your circle does that too, then you don't have someone else who's on the outside saying, hey, like, that's not cool, or like, you're always being negative, or like, hey, maybe it's not healthy to like be drinking every night. So I think it's good to have people in your life that kind of keep you in check too, and offer a different perspective to keep you grounded, but also to keep you on like a healthier, more productive path.
Yeah, it's funny that you say that because my wife is always like the first one to remind me. She's like, "Hey, you might be a big deal at work, but when you come home, you're a husband, you're a dad, you're a grandpa, and that's what you need to remember." And so it is good to have people that do keep you in check because it would be super easy, and especially in this profession, to just get locked into that circle, like you say, and it could just be perpetuating negativity and the stress of the job, and you never get away from it. And that's what we're really trying to encourage is be able to uncouple from your job when you're not here,
Mm,
and really then that's when you can make an impact on your own personal life. It's one of the reasons. So we work 410s, or our patrol folks and most of our detectives work 4 10-hour shifts, because we know that it takes about 48 hours for cortisol levels to start to balance out. So
mm,
really, if you work 5/8 in law enforcement, by the time you're ready to come back to work on your Monday, you're just about to a point where that stress level has reduced to like a normal person level, right? So at least now we can give somebody a day to maybe be normal, quote normal, right?
mm.
So having that ability to reduce the stress level and get your body's cortisol levels back to an area that is maybe more close to normal, and you're not having the spikes, the up and downs. That's all part of what lends to that longevity of life, right? I
Yeah.
think I mentioned this before, is that I want our officers to be well while they're working so that when they retire, that they're going to live as long in retirement as they were working, right? I
Yeah.
want them to take advantage of the hard work that they put into the retirement program and be able to live a long, healthy retirement. And one of the ways to do that is by living well while they're working. But we have to give them the tools in order to do that.
Yeah.
And, all those things add up in the end, right?
I heard something one time that kind of stuck with me, and it said, do things today that your future self will be proud of, or your future self would be happy, that you did it. And so it's in the context of that. It's like I have never ever met someone in law enforcement where I said, do you want to work 25, 30 years and then have a 5-year retirement and die?
Right.
And then say yes. No one is going to say yes to that. You're never going to have someone who doesn't want a long and successful retirement, where you feel good and you get to do the things that you want to do, whether that's traveling or fishing or spending time with your grandbabies and your kid,
That's right.
like
Yeah.
everyone wants that. And so, to your point, how can we start today to put in place those steps that are going to increase the chances that that is going to happen for us? And so, I think if you can really connect to that and you can ask, like, what is the goal? Like, what do I want?
Hmm.
Maybe in this moment, especially for younger people, like maybe in this moment, like you feel good, you don't feel like you really need it, but like, hey, like, in 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, 30 years, what do you want your life to look like? And how can you put in place those habits and those consistencies today that are going to set you up for success? And so I really appreciate that approach of like, it's all about longevity. All the things that you're doing organizationally are in hopes of setting up your team for longevity, not just in their career, but in their lives and life after retirement.
Yeah, and a couple of the other things too, and I'm glad you hit on like the early career folks, right? So some of the stuff that we're doing that is really, I mean, sure, it's helpful to those of us like myself that are on the sunset of our careers, but those people that are in the first couple of years of their career. So for example, we've started cardiac health assessments, right? Where you get a cardiac health assessment, you get an opportunity to talk to a nutritionist. They talk about what your blood readings look like, and then they're able to get different markers that can help give you indications on your current health and then moving forward. So some of our early career folks are going to have the luxury of that history for their entire career. And we know that cops are horrible in the department of cardiac health, right? Cops die of heart disease at a rate that's exponentially higher than the general public.
Yeah.
You talked about short retirements. It's like, I think the average retirement after, or the average life expectancy after retirement for a cop is like 18 months.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous and it's completely unacceptable. I mean, the average life expectancy is like 57 years old for a cop.
Yeah.
That's completely unacceptable if we're, thinking about this industry. And so we have to give those younger officers the tools to be well through their entire career so they can start to break that average and they can go, no, we're going to get to what the same is for the general public. We want our officers to have the same life expectancy as the general public. And the only way to do that is to start when they're early in their careers. So a lot of this isn't going to be as beneficial for people that are in the last 5 years of their career, but the people that are in the first 5 years of their career, they're going to get this their entire time.
Mhm.
And then that way, then maybe when they do go into retirement, they will have that life expectancy is close to what the general public is. But we have to give them all the tools to get there.
Yeah. And on that topic of people who are younger in this career, you and I talked offline, but I started this podcast so that we can bottle up all of this wisdom that you have and this perspective that you have, and share that with people who are earlier in their career so that they can be more proactive in taking care of themselves. And so, what words of wisdom would you share with someone who's maybe earlier in their career? Maybe something that you wish you would have known or something that has helped you along the way.
Yeah, a couple of things. So, first of all, stay active, right? A lot of people get into this career, they're physically fit and they get ready because they know they have to be fit to pass the physical fitness evaluation and all of that. And then they get hired and they're like, oh, it's too stressful. I don't have the time. Make the time. Of course, at this agency, we're giving you the time. So, stay active and keep doing that. And then that mental health piece, so critical.
Mm.
I wish somebody would have underscored that with me and reiterated it with me as much as I heard save for retirement, plan for retirement, put money away. We were good about that at this agency. Everywhere you turned, oh, put money in your deferred compensation plan. You'll be able to retire at a young age. That's awesome. But nobody ever said anything about, hey, if you start running into some stress that maybe is a little more than what you're used to, go talk to a therapist.
Yeah.
So that's the advice I would give. Take advantage of the resources because I bet you that your organization has an EAP, an employee assistance plan, that affords you the opportunity to go to at least a couple of therapy appointments and it won't cost you a penny.
Mhm.
Some agencies are going to have even better, more robust programs. So I would encourage that, just like you would if you were feeling sick. If you're like, gosh, I haven't been feeling very well for like 2 weeks, I should probably go get a doctor's appointment. Same type of thing. If you're feeling that stress, go talk to a therapist. There should be no stigma. You don't have to tell anybody about it. Just
Mhm.
go do it. Because, I heard it taught or heard it referred to as a checkup from the neck up,
Mhm.
right? Awesome phrase. Love that. And I use it around here. It's not mine. I didn't coin it. But nonetheless, really seriously, that's an opportunity for people to work on being well. And if somebody had told me that early in my career, it could have made a difference for me helping other new officers as well. So those are some pieces that I wish I knew. Um, but now I do. And so now I can share that with our new people coming in and we're seeing some of those results already, which is great.
Yeah. And I think that, it's such a big opportunity. You may not have been as passionate about this if you didn't experience the opposite, right? And so it is an amazing opportunity for all leadership and people who have been in this profession for a long time to learn from past experiences and be able to share your wealth of knowledge and wisdom with people who are younger and share those words of wisdom so that they can learn from you guys. And so I appreciate your time so much. I appreciate you coming on here and sharing what you guys are doing organizationally and sharing your words of wisdom. I appreciate it so much.
Sorry, my light again, doggone
Oh, good.
it.
Thank you for your time. Thank you for being here.
Absolutely. Thanks, Paige. It was my pleasure and an honor to be on and best. And thank you very much again for the opportunity.
Of course.